is Alexander Mishkovic. I'm a CEO and a president of Terra Balcanica Resource Corp. We are a multi-jurisdictional polymetallic explorer targeting southeastern Europe, specifically Serbia and Bosnia, focusing on shallow, high-grade deposits of lead, zinc, silver, copper, gold, and antimony. These are forward-looking statements. I'm the qualified person by the 43101 Canadian National Instrument Standards. So why would somebody be interested in a newly listed junior explorer headquartered in Vancouver but operating overseas in Europe, in Serbia and Bosnia? Well, we be exploring two ancient mining jurisdictions. These are over 2,000-year-old mining jurisdictions, mining districts, Serbia and Bosnia, explored as far back as the Roman times. We are looking at the belt of prolific porphyry, copper, and epithermal gold mineralization with a fresh set of eyes. We are trying to apply the most recent scientific techniques, geophysical, geochemical techniques to look at the region from a standpoint of really discovering high-grade and large tonnage deposits. In Bosnia, we own project called Viogor-Zanik that surrounds a currently operational mine called Sase, producing 330 kilotons of lead, zinc, silver concentrate per year, owned by a private entity based in London called Mineco. We have 3 licenses surrounding this mine where we have developed 3 different targets over the course of the last 18 months. In Serbia, we are exploring 2 different licenses. One is called Kaludra, and it's a classical Balkan polymetallic intermediate sulfidation epithermal style deposit with lead, zinc, silver as the primary commodities. And then Ceovište, another target in the Serbian mining district of Raška, where gold is our primary target, high-grade, shallow gold. We have a fairly tight capital structure as a newly listed company, listed on the Canadian Securities Exchange on the 20th of June. Close to half of the entire volume of shares is owned by directors, executives, and advisors, close associates, and committed to a long-term success of our operations. We have local operational expertise. I was born in former Yugoslavia, born in Bosnia. Like my previous colleague and speaker, I speak the language and know the customs and habits. So therefore, with already operational experience from the companies I worked for in the region before, my team and I are able to quickly assess a particular license, explore it, turn it over, or advance it further. And we have a seasoned board. I'm lucky that I've been joined by a team of proven capital markets and corporate finance executives who have plenty of experience managing and running small exploration companies. What is of particular importance is the fact that we are halfway through our initial maiden drilling program. About 2,000 meters of drilling has been conducted in the last 4 months, and we are currently releasing news releases that speak to the targets and grades and intercepts that we have encountered during the last 120 days. So geographically speaking, again, we are in the southeastern Europe. Here's Serbia, and as Gilbert promptly mentioned, both countries are part of the Chinese Road and Belt Initiative. Serbia has a particularly friendly relationship with China, with both presidents visiting each other countries multiple occasions. Overall, our land portfolio is about 353 kilometers squared of combined land position. Again, most of it presented here in the eastern Bosnia, Viogor-Zanik polymetallic project, but again, 2 different properties in Serbia as well. As Gilbert mentioned, Čuka Rupek is only one of many tier 1, I would say, world-class deposits of copper, gold, lead, zinc, and silver that one can find in what is called Western Tethyan metallogenic belt. This belt extends all the way from Central Europe through Middle East and then onwards into Central Asia, through China into Australia, effectively. However, this terminus or this end western part of it seems to be particularly well endowed. If you take overall footprint of this white square here and divide pounds of copper discovered or ounces of gold, I would dare to say that it's probably the best and the most well-endowed portion of the Western Tethyan Belt. We have Cukaru-Peki, recently acquired by Zijin, as well as some other Western companies operating in the region. Rio Tinto's project is also located in Serbia. We, however, are operating in Bosnia, which seems to be a fairly unexplored jurisdiction relative to Serbia. And this is where our properties are located along this oligo-Miocene belt. Zooming in even further on that upper left corner, we can see all the major players in the region. So Solvay is actually a Russian company. We have Rio Tinto, Anglo-Australian conglomerate. Freeport-McMoran owns lower part of the Cukaru-Peki deposit, whereas Zijin owns the upper part. And then, of course, we have Dundee Precious Metals that operates a mine in Bulgaria, et cetera, et cetera. So this slide really, I would like to convey a couple of messages here. It is exceptionally endowed metallogenic belt. I think it contains some tier one globally recognized deposits. For example, in northern Kosovo, the autonomous province of Serbia, probably unknown to many, sits Europe's largest lead zinc mine called Trepča, with over 65 million tons of ore, part of it which was already explored. Bosnia is a country and jurisdiction that has recently come to the prominence by the virtue of having Adriatic Metals PLC, initially an Australian listed company, but now listed in London, that managed to fast track their Vareš silver project at unprecedented rate. From the moment they intercepted the first hole until the moment they raised $250 million US to develop their silver mine in Vareš, it took them only 4.5 years. One would have to look hard over the entire globe to see and find a jurisdiction where project can be that rapidly developed. Zijin's acquisition of Nefsun for $1.8 million Canadian obviously speaks to the opportunity that can exist in the region. And I must say that former Yugoslav landmass, it was very well mapped, geologically very well assessed, however unexplored using modern techniques. And that's precisely where we come in. Terra Balcanica offers a competitive operational advantage due to fairly strong regional experience and presence in the region. So let's go now zoom in on our flagship project. Again, it has an operating mine right in the middle, and we have surrounded this operating mine with our licenses all around. There are 3 primary targets that have been developed. One is called Trumavici, then we have Olovine and Brezhany. You will notice that each one of them contains a different style of deposit, which is precisely our goal. We acquired this 216 square kilometers parcel of land precisely with the intention of finding different deposit styles. So if you want to think of our flagship project, you can think of it in terms of 1 district, 3 deposit styles, 7 metals. Very briefly about Trumavici prospect, I don't want to go too much into the technical details, but it suffices to say that it's about 7.2 kilometer long corridor of mineralization that contains multiple superficial evidence of high-grade polymetallic vein-hosted epithermal deposits on surface. And these locations here, these triangles, are all the locations where we have drilled. What's very interesting is that in both Trumavici Ridge and the locality called Joševa, we have intercepted similar type of mineralization with equivalent grades, and these 2 locations are 3.5 kilometers apart. That is a testament to the spatial extent of this northwest-southeast corridor. Second target, completely virgin and freshly discovered by Terra Balcanica using airborne geophysics, magnetics, and electromagnetics, is Brezhany. Brezhany is a skarn porphyry target that contains mineralization on surface. On the left-hand side, you see the evidence or the map of our superficial trenches. So we have dug with the bulldozer the superficial area and discovered that gold is present from the very surface. So we have an area of, let's say, up to 1 gram per ton gold over 10 meters in these trenches on the surface. So that was very interesting for us. And then obviously we wanted to test this huge magnetic and electromagnetic anomaly to depth, and obviously we will be presenting the results of that drilling in the upcoming press releases. But it suffices to say at this point that we have been very positively surprised by sheer size and the potential grade that this target represents. Very exciting times. This is a map that lays out all the locations where we have drilled. So we have Čumavići, this red square, in the Olovine, which is a porphyry copper target, these 3 holes, and in the Brežani we have 1 hole. So overall, about 1,850 meters of drilling. In other words, proving our thesis that these mineralized systems do exist and they're quite extensive in size. Here's a snapshot of a press release that just came out 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, I should say. It is a stacked polymetallic multi-commodity shallow epithermal system with some pretty nice grades, only 29 meters below the surface. And obviously what we are doing right now is testing the extent of this cross-section into the screen, if you want to think of it like that, or outside of the screen, and of course down dip. Here's some pictures of these lead, zinc, silver, massive sulfides, sphalerite, stibnite, and galena. So now let's move our attention away from Bosnia and 2 brief slides on our Serbian properties. We have Kaludra, lead, zinc, silver property that we are examining, particularly its eastern part. Here's some soil geochemistry done, laid over by superficial charge IP resistivity geophysical survey, results of which you can see in one of the slices below. What we have managed to identify is a corridor of northeast, southwest, high-grade zinc mineralization that basically is defined by these blue dots here, and that happens to coincide with a shallow chargeability target only about 120 meters in the surface. So this area or this project is ready to drill, huge potential. We suspect that this can only be a massive sulfide of lead, zinc, and possibly silver as an associated metal. And this is what we intend to do in Q1 of next year. Here's basically a drill pad model or proposal with a scissor hole to test this shallow geophysical target that, of course, on the surface is represented by geochemistry. Next, in Serbia, we have Ceovište, which is 80-kilometer large license, formerly explored for porphyry coppers primarily, but what we want to focus in our case is just gold. In the upper left corner of this license, you can see here where this green grid exists. We have identified an area of historical workings done before the Second World War, as well as during the communist time, communist Yugoslavia, where some very systematic and detailed work was done by the old-timers and geologists at that time. And we have repeated some of those assays and came up with some very high gold grades on surface. I myself have collected a sample right here on this road that runs 67 grams per ton gold on surface. And these subterranean galleries or horizontal mine shafts, and this is how the old-timers would explore at that time, also contain some very high-grade intercepts. Obviously, our target or end goal here is to quickly test this high-grade gold target and supplement our base metal portfolio or basket of metals with some precious metals from Ceovište. So here's quickly what the next 3 to 6 months will look like for Terra Balcanica. We have already gone through about 3,500 meters of initial drilling in Viogor-Zanik, but we do plan to carry on with the drilling there as well. Phase 2 drilling next year will probably be the pivotal year when, if funding is available, we want to go for up to 10,000 meters of drilling and really prove the extent and the size of this flagship project. Whereas in Kaludra, in Serbia, and Ceovište, we plan to do about 1,000 to 1,500 meters of drilling just to test the validity of these targets and hopefully add, as I said, all these value catalysts. So the goal is to keep on generating press releases and results to maintain that momentum that we think we have at the moment. For those who do not know Serbia and Bosnia, these are, as I mentioned, ancient mining districts with a world-class geology and highly skilled workforce. Established mining codes and clear permitting processes exist. This is what enables us ultimately to obtain that 353 square kilometer portfolio with a possibility to expand it further. Very supportive local governments. We have a clear license to operate in both countries. Governmental engagement is strong. You can maintain a license for 7 years in both jurisdictions until the moment when you're supposed to present the results to the government. So that's very nice. Fairly low corporate tax and royalty of 5%. I like to use this slide as a comparative, just again to reiterate how quickly things can be done in Bosnia, which is fairly unknown to many investors. 4.5 years from the maiden drill hole to the feasibility study financing of $250 million. Obviously, we would like to replicate this story as much as we can, given the fact that both geologically and geographically, these are our neighbors. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but our website contains this presentation, but I'm also chief geologist in addition to being a CEO, and I'm leading a team of international UK, Canadian, Swiss, and domestic Serbian geologists. I'm very proud of that international aspect of it. And of course, our board of directors who helps me on the corporate and the finance side as well. We have some advisors who are also experienced, seasoned professionals from the Vancouver mining circles. In terms of capital structure and financing and path forward, so our first day of trading on a Canadian Securities Exchange was the 20th of June. We trade under the ticker Terra, T-E-R-A. Prior to that, it was our intention to exist as a private entity. And over the course of that existence of 18 to 24 months, we raised close to 5 million Canadian dollars. All of that money was spent either on defining the targets or advancing them forward in drilling. Management and close parties own up to 47% of the entire volume of the shares outstanding, with an escrow agreement where we have committed ourselves to this company at least for 3 years. In other words, there won't be very little in terms of dilution, and selling from the management actually practically zero. And again, common story in terms of next steps is just drilling, and more drilling. The final slide for all of you is that I was advised to actually come up with a comparative slide that will put Terra Balcanica, which is on the right-hand side, in the context of the existing producers and explorers worldwide. So here's different jurisdictions: Nevada, Yukon, BC, Alaska, Mexico, Bosnia. Here's Adriatic, that story that I keep on referring to. And what I've done is I've taken their best intercepts from the last few press releases and the best grades and compared it to ours, and then also lined them up from left to right in terms of increasing market capitalization all the way from 80 million to $1.64 billion. When you look at it like that, our grades are very much, and this is only the first few holes that we are showing here, very much in the ballpark with the rest of the team. Obviously, some are better than ours and thicker, but we have, in a sense, have nothing to be ashamed of on one hand. On the other hand, our market capitalization is only a fraction of even the closest neighbor. Currently trading between 9 and 11 cents. We are very lucrative as an investment opportunity, given the potential that we present and the, as I mentioned, press releases that are upcoming in the next, let's say, 60 days from now. That will be the final slide. Thank you so very much for your attention, and I'm open to any questions you may have.
Hi, Alex. A couple of questions here. One is, how's the relationship with the local government there in Bosnia? How about the local communities?
Right. That's something that we have worked very hard on establishing a very good relationship with the local stakeholders. I mean, just one clear example is that the law in Bosnia, in the Bosnian Serb Republic, does not require a company to conduct a baseline and environmental study to make sure that that both the locals, the local government, and the stakeholders on whose land we are working are happy. We have conducted that analysis and the baseline environmental study, nonetheless, presented results at a local gathering or town hall meetings on a few occasions, got very good reception back, feedback. So we interact with the locals all the time. We hire people from the local community and have, as I mentioned, a clear license to operate. So I must say, a very supportive place to work and do business.
And what will be the biggest risk for your company in advancing these projects?
Now, of course, in addition to the latest events that have struck us all, energy crisis, I can see on my balance sheet that since the crisis commenced in Ukraine in February of this year, that operational costs have increased. So that obviously something we keep a close attention to. Macroeconomic stability and instability that exists in the world markets is also something we cannot control or do anything about. What we can do, and I must say that actually danger of losing or government intervening and nationalizing these assets in the Balkans is absolutely minimal, or I would say zero. Both countries are looking towards joining European Union. They're synchronized their legal framework with the EU. They're trying to make, and they're thirsty for investment, foreign investment, Chinese, Western European, and countries are seen as places to place the capital in the last 3 or 4 years, obviously supported by good initiatives from the government on both sides of the River Drina. So the risks, I think, is really trying to manage dilution at this point, trying to manage the macroeconomic instability that exists in the context of ambitious plans we have for the next year.
we're running out of time. So one last question is, will you be looking for a partner for your project in Serbia?
We are very closely positioned in both of our properties in Serbia to Adriatic metals. They have acquired Tethyan Resources, a company that existed and operated in that region until 2 years ago. So now that portfolio is theirs, and they are also targeted 2 mines, Kijevac and Sastavci in southwestern Serbia. I think any discovery of lead, zinc, silver in the Kaludro license, which is only 15 kilometers away as the crow flies from their Kijevac and Sastavci mine that have acquired by acquisition of Tethyan Resources, would be a natural place for them to add onto their portfolio. Having said that, we would absolutely be open for any sort of partnership in not only Serbia, but in both countries, strategic partnership, strategic investment that would actually see the next developmental phase of the company.
Thank you, Alex, for sharing your story with us here today.
Thank you so very much. Thanks, Gilbert.
Thank you.